Hello and welcome to Sorcerer's Workshop, where we are always cooking up something new for you to use in your next D&D adventure. This week we're going to be talking about the 4 oozes, slimes, jellies, whatever you want to call them, from Dungeons & Dragons. I'll be getting into a bit more detail in a minute, but for the starters, here's just a shot of the 4 different main types. I'll be telling you how to make them, and giving you a bit of information about them at the same time. The main types of oozes found within Dungeons & Dragons are of course the black pudding, gelatinous cube, orca jelly, and the grey slime. First up, we have the large challenge rating 2 gelatinous cube. These are clear oozes. This is the challenge rating 2 large ooze, the orca jelly. These have the ability to split, that is why there is 2 smaller ones, and are a dirty mustardy yellow in colour. As you can see, I'm pointing out some of the designs that I've made on the piece. Next up, we have the grey ooze. These are a medium ooze with a challenge rating of 1/2. They are grey in colour, as the name would suggest, and I've made them slightly differently to the picture here, but I'll explain that very shortly. And finally, we have the black pudding. This is a large ooze with a challenge rating of 4. As you can see, mine is on a huge base. This is because I like to make my miniatures with multiple purposes. This black pudding can be either used as an elder black pudding, as shown in the picture here, or just a normal black pudding. The first ooze I'll be showing you how to make is the gelatinous cube, a very hard one to pronounce for me, and here is the miniature that we usually use for scale. As you can see, the gelatinous cube is of a large size. If you are unsure of sizes, check out the previous video on this channel where I discussed what each of the different sizes means. So let's get making the gelatinous cube. For this you're going to need a template, so let me go make the template and I'll be back in a little bit. Alright, here is the template. It is 5 centimeters or 500 millimeters each side, all the way around. It is made of just very clear plastic, and as you can see, it's, quite bendable. Welcome to the edge of my table. You're going to need anything, or you can just use a sharp object for this. You're going to want to fold it so it creates a box. You can do 6 sides if you don't want it to have the feature of being able to put a miniature in it, but I like to have that feature. As you can see, you might need to bend some a little bit back because they may get that. You sort of want it in sort of a 90-degree angle, but it doesn't have to be perfect. It is a ooze after all. So all you want to do is go along the table, making sure that all of them are sort of in a straightish sort of way. While you're doing that, I'll give you a little bit of background information. Gelatinous cubes scour dungeon passages in silent, predictable patterns, leaving perfectly clean passages in their wake. They consume living tissue while leaving bones and other materials undissolved. A gelatinous cube is all but transparent, making it hard to spot until it attacks. Oh, you're finished! Oh, fantastic. Alright, well, now you've got your square. As you can see, the measurements basically fit up. Well, hopefully you've got some hot glue, because this costs a lot of hot glue. You want to smother this thing in hot glue. Make sure it's a bit uneven to give it a more realistic look. Now moving on to the grey ooze. Here are the 2 grey oozes that I use when I play Dungeons & Dragons. They're nothing special, but they do the job. Now, before we get going, I'll show you with the miniature so you know how large these are. These are just medium creatures, so they are at the same size as our faithful miniature. A grey ooze is stone turned to liquid by chaos. When it moves, it slithers like a liquid snake, rising to strike. And here's how to make them. So, here they are, in all their glory. So what I did was, I literally got my base that I use, this is a medium base, and a piece of wire. This can be thin wire, thick wire, it really doesn't matter. Now get your hot glue out. You really need hot glue for this video, and you just want to first just glue it on there. Right, so you can't really do anything else until that's dry, so just give it a few minutes to dry. Now it's dry, you can begin with the slimification. Let's call it that. You want to just absolutely smother this thing in hot glue. That gives it a really sticky, slimy bleh sort of look. The shot is unfortunately out of focus. My camera just had a bit of a moment, let's say there, but there'll be a better shot in a minute. As you can see, maybe I'm putting a little bit around the edges to sort of build it out, but it's sort of in its striking or pseudopod sort of form, because there's no good the characters like in a Dungeons and Dragons attacking a big old blob on the floor. I had a few sort of sticky tendrils, like it's stuck. You can see that especially on the one on the right, and a little bit on the front as well. Make sure it's looking a bit affected by gravity, so add sort of a bit of slime dripping off the front. But I think that looks pretty good. I'd love to see yours. Once you've finished that, all you want to do is add a little bit of grey paint. You can add a little bit of dry brushing, that's the word, if you want, but I just like to keep them grey to really solidify that they are grey oozes. Here is a slightly clearer shot of the finished grey ooze, and now if I put it beside one of the other oozes that I've created in the past, you can see that they are quite similar, except for a bit of grey paint perhaps. The base was just given a black coat with a bit of sponged off grey. Here is the Orca jelly. Orca jellies are on a large base, as you will see in a second, compared to the medium size of our comparison miniature. Orca jellies are yellowish blobs that slide under doors and through nano cracks in pursuit of creatures to devour. Its digestive enzymes dissolve flesh quickly but have no effect on other substances such as bone, wood and metal. Here are the two smaller ones because of course Orca jellies have the ability to split. I'm not going to do a full tutorial for these as they are practically the same as the grey oozes, just a little bit bigger. They do however have a slightly more, slightly more fluid sort of look, I would say. As you can see, they're sort of leaning a bit more, and the colour is of course different. Here is the miniature we made for the grey ooze, and as you can see it very closely resembles the smaller sizes, because as the large Orca jelly splits it forms two medium Orca jelly. To make the Orca jelly, all you want to do is scale up the grey ooze. Finally, we move on to the black pudding. This was actually the second model I ever made when starting this hobby. As I noted earlier, it's actually on a huge base. Here is our miniature for scale once again, and the huge base is because I like to use it for both an elder black pudding and just a normal black pudding. A cool thing about this model is the character that is being quote-unquote engulfed. You can actually put a medium or smaller one in that sort of area and it looks quite cool. The black pudding can split much like the Orca jelly, so I made two smaller ones which are again medium size so that it can resemble that. A black pudding resembles a heavily mould of sticky black sludge. In dim pathways, the pudding appears to be little more than a blot of shadow. Flesh, wood, metal and bone dissolve when the pudding ebbs over them. Stone remains behind, wiped clean. There is our model. As you can see, they're about the same size as the medium black puddings. The black pudding that I have made is made entirely of clay. Clay is something I will be using a lot on this channel. However, when I use clay, I like to use a sort of wire skeleton underneath for the clay to cling onto. And there you have it. All four types of major ooze. The Gelatinous Cube, black pudding, there is our miniature for scale, the Orca jelly, and then the grey ooze. I hope you learnt something from this video. If you did, remember to like, and if you really enjoy the content, make sure to subscribe. If you want a full tutorial of these, well, tell me in the comments. Otherwise, I'll see you next week.